Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights. All right, welcome back. On some tragic news, we have the sergeant for the State Police Troop C, Sergeant Ross Brennan, who joins us now. We're going to talk about some fatalities that were involved in a car crash. And if we could bring those up real quick, then I'll turn it over to Sergeant Ross Brennan. We have Rylan Orkow, 18, Talia Crochet, 18, and arrested was Axel Flores Cordova, also 18. Let me bring in the sergeant for State Police Troop C. Very tragic accident, and if you could give us some details, I'd appreciate it.
So yes, sir. So July 21st around 1 a.m., Troop C, we responded to a two-vehicle fatality crash on Highway 3090 near Fourchon area. Unfortunately, with this crash here, it resulted in a underage impaired driver being arrested, as well as two 18-year-olds being killed in that crash, as well as two others being seriously injured. So our preliminary investigation found that Flores was traveling on Highway 3090 in a Jeep whenever he crossed the center line into the path of a Kia that was driven by Orkow. The drivers tried to make some maneuvers to be able to avoid the crash, but it ultimately resulted in the Jeep colliding with the Kia head on. And unfortunately, in that crash, the front passenger, Crochet, she was killed at the scene. And Orkow, he was transported to a nearby hospital where he later succumbed to his injuries. Two passengers that were in the backseat of the Kia, they were also seriously injured. They were transported to an out-of-area hospital. Now, Flores was not injured in the crash. He was not restrained, but troopers noticed that there were signs of impairment in him. They did the sobriety test, and he did provide a voluntary breath sample that showed that his toxicology level was 7 times over the underage driving limit, which is 0.02. So even if it's the adult level, it's still significantly high. So of course he was arrested. He was booked into Lafourche Parish Detention Center on a bunch of serious charges. I mean, you got 2 counts of vehicular homicide. Those are 2 felonies. You also had 2 counts of vehicular negligent injury for the passengers. That's also 2 felonies, as well as driving related charges. So crossing the center line, not wearing a seatbelt, and also not having a driver's license. So pretty serious charges. Very, very unfortunate. We hate to have something like this. It's bad when you got one person, but to have all these young people involved in this crash is pretty tragic for the area.
You know, and I'm going to ask you this, and I know I've asked you before, but for the sake of repeating it so that a lot of people hear it, your life can change, especially, I feel for the victims in this, and I pray for their families, and certainly we wish them condolences. But for the young man who was driving that, you said 7 times over the legal limit, his life has changed. And, you know, we hear it a lot of times, the one who's drinking and driving a lot of times lives, but that life's going to become a living hell with everything he's going to have to go through in the legal system. We can't emphasize that enough, can we?
No, not at all. So, I mean, those are serious felony charges. You're looking at just one charge alone, the vehicular homicide, can be a sentence up to 30 years. So we're having compound charges here in addition to the injury charges. So definitely some serious consequences that come with it. And I think it's just good to point out that as a young driver, things can happen fast on the road. Remember, this driver here was 18 years old. He shouldn't have been drinking alone, but he shouldn't be on the roadway at all. So we have, in addition to the impaired driving, we also have driving with no driver's license. Whether it's driving with no driver's license or suspended license, a lot of people still get on the roadway. So maybe if he wouldn't have been on the road at all, this crash would have been prevented, in addition to also not driving impaired. So I think it's good as parents, just tell your kids, look, we know kids are going to go out. They're going to test the waters a little bit. There might be house parties. If they're going to have anything that causes them impairment, whether alcohol or drugs, get a ride home, a sober rider home, whether it's calling that parent or a family member or getting an Uber or Lyft, whatever it might be, even staying at that person's house. It's so easy because only thing you got to be over the BAC for under 21 is 0.02. That's such a small amount that you can be underage DWI just off of one alcoholic drink based on your body type. So it's very easy for an underage person to get that underage DWI, and things can happen fast. A young driver, they're not fully experienced behind the wheel, so they're already susceptible of being involved in crashes. And now you have this compound effect whenever you have impairment involved. You can see where it's just a recipe for disaster.
And of course, you all get to see firsthand the consequences, not only at the scene, which, I know y'all used to go into schools and show, pictures to the students. And I can remember my younger brother would say, Martin, buckle up before we go drive. And I was in the habit of not buckling up. And he put it in my head so much that it's a habit now when I get in the car. You just buckle up. But y'all have done a great job of educating people, but y'all had to educate them the hard way by showing them some pictures that weren't fun to look at, but you have to drive the point home, don't you?
Most definitely. And look, with social media and stuff nowadays, kids are exposed to a lot of stuff. So maybe in the past, just talking with them might have been able to get through, but now I've seen a lot of people are desensitized to things. So by having these, real life situations, showing these photographs, and having people who've actually lost loved ones to DWI drivers come in and speak to these kids, they actually see not just the legal side of it too, but the lasting lifelong effects. These are loved ones that aren't coming back home. Christmas is always going to be different. Family get-togethers are always going to be different. They're always going to be reminded of that person who did make it home because one, either they chose to drink and drive or drive impaired, or they were the victim of somebody else's poor choice on the roadway. That's what some people don't think about. They think about just DWI, it's just legal side, but it's those long-lasting effects. Even if you get into a crash and survive it, let's say you're seriously injured, you might not be able to walk again, talk again. You might not even be able to change yourself, rely on a caregiver to take care of you for the rest of your life. How's that burden not only on you, but also your friends and your family who have to care for you as well? So again, it's a lot of different things happen, but most importantly, the decision to drive impaired is a choice somebody made. You need to make those right choices to get behind the wheel sober, where your full attention's on the roadway to prevent tragedies like this.
Right, Trooper Ross Brennan, thank you. 13 fatal crashes, 16 fatalities, 2024. Thank you, Trooper. We appreciate you being here. We'll be back with more.
Weights and Downer. You or someone you know has lost the ability to earn a living because someone put the company interests before their well-being. In times like these, there's one firm who has handled hundreds of catastrophic and lost earning cases. Before you settle fast with a company's attorney, give Weights and Downer a call. 985-876-0870. Weights and Downer. Let us fight for your rights.